Hello, esteemed gentlemen. When people sense true power, they don't celebrate it, they reorganize themselves around it. There's a strange shift that happens when a Sigma male walks into people's awareness. Suddenly, conversations warp, personalities distort, and even confidence becomes a performance art. It's not about fear, it's about instinct. Humans are hardwired to react to hierarchy, and when someone carries quiet dominance, the room recalibrates without permission. Psychologists call it social resonance, the way one person's energy silently rewires the group dynamic. But with a Sigma, it's different, because his energy doesn't shout, it hums. It doesn't demand attention, it attracts it by gravity. People don't even realize they've started orbiting him until they catch themselves over-explaining, laughing too loud, or trying to prove they're on his level. And the irony? The Sigma isn't even trying. He's just existing, unbothered, unchained, and slightly amused by how humans turn into emotional weather vanes in his presence. It's the kind of calm that makes people nervous, curious, and a little obsessed all at once. So today we're diving into the raw psychology behind it. The 20 subtle, eerie, and often hilarious things people do when they recognize a Sigma male is the chosen one. Because make no mistake, when true presence enters the room, the masks start slipping. Number 1, they remember him long after forgetting everyone else. They remember him long after forgetting everyone else. And it's not because he tried to leave a mark, it's because he was the mark. There's something about a Sigma male that etches itself into memory without effort. He doesn't flood conversations, he doesn't post every thought online, and he doesn't perform for approval. Yet somehow, long after the noise of others fades, his presence stays. It lingers quietly in people's minds, like a scent they can't name but can't forget either. People may move on, meet new faces, change environments, but they'll catch themselves recalling something he said months ago, maybe even years later. A simple line. A silence that felt louder than words. A way he made eye contact that felt like he could see 10 layers deep without trying. He wasn't the loudest, but his energy carried the kind of depth that stains the soul. And once you've been around that kind of depth, shallow people start feeling painfully obvious. There's also the unsettling part. People remember him because he forced them to face themselves without ever saying they should. His calm revealed their chaos. His detachment exposed their dependency. His self-assurance made their insecurities impossible to hide. You can't forget the person who made you confront your reflection. Not the one in the mirror, but the one you've been avoiding. And it's not just admiration that keeps his memory alive. It's curiosity, confusion. A lingering sense of, what was that? People can't categorize him neatly, so their mind keeps revisiting the mystery, replaying conversations, analyzing micro-expressions like detectives chasing an unsolved case. The Sigma becomes a kind of emotional riddle people never quite solve, and that's what makes him unforgettable. Time only deepens the impression. While others fade with familiarity, he grows in absence. His silence starts to mean more. His distance becomes significance. People realize they didn't meet just another man. They crossed paths with someone who operates outside the system everyone else is trapped in. And once you've seen that kind of freedom up close, every imitation of confidence after that feels hollow. That's why people never really get over a Sigma male. They just quietly carry his echo and pretend they don't. Number 2, they speak louder but say less. They speak louder but say less. And it's almost funny once you notice it. The Sigma doesn't demand space. He simply owns it without trying. His silence isn't weakness, it's control. It unnerves people because they can't read it, can't measure it, can't predict it. So they do what most insecure minds do when faced with quiet power. They compensate with noise. Voices rise, laughter gets forced, and people start throwing words around like confetti, hoping it distracts from the tension they feel. It's not arrogance that makes them do it, it's instinct. The Sigma's calm dominance triggers something primal. They sense a kind of authority that doesn't rely on attention, and it unsettles their social rhythm. Humans are used to dominance being loud, visible, and ego-driven, but when dominance shows up in silence, it breaks the script. And because they can't compete with what they can't understand, they try to drown it out. You'll notice it in small ways. Someone suddenly cracking more jokes than usual, interrupting others, or talking over conversations they normally wouldn't. It's their subconscious fighting to be noticed, to prove that they too exist in the same emotional territory. But the more they speak, the more obvious the imbalance becomes. The Sigma doesn't chase the spotlight. The spotlight finds him, and that terrifies the ones addicted to validation. The louder they talk, the more they reveal. Not about the Sigma, but about themselves. You can hear their insecurity between every word, the fear of being irrelevant next to someone who radiates relevance without effort. Meanwhile, the Sigma just sits there, composed, slightly amused, and quietly dissecting every fake tone around him. That's the irony of true power. It doesn't compete, it just exists. The Sigma doesn't need to raise his voice to dominate the room. Everyone else does it for him, unconsciously, desperately, and beautifully unaware that their noise is a confession. Number 3, they seek his approval while pretending they don't. They seek his approval while pretending they don't. And it's one of the most fascinating games people play around a Sigma. They'll throw casual shade, tease him, or challenge his opinions just to see how he reacts. It's not disrespect, it's testing. They want to know if he's truly as unshakable as he seems, or if the calm is just an act. But beneath that performance of indifference is a quiet craving for something deeper, his acknowledgement. Because his approval isn't cheap, and that makes it sacred. The Sigma's validation carries a strange weight. He doesn't give it out easily, not because he's arrogant, but because he doesn't need to please anyone. That alone makes people chase it harder. In a world where most men flatter, over-explain, and beg for acceptance, his lack of interest becomes addictive. It flips the social hierarchy upside down. Suddenly, those who thought they were in control find themselves performing, hoping he notices, hoping he approves, hoping he sees. You'll hear it in their words, sarcasm coated with curiosity, jokes laced with genuine questions. They'll poke fun at him, but their eyes stay locked on his reaction. They want to feel that subtle nod of respect, that silent confirmation that they've earned even a sliver of his attention. Because when a man like that recognizes you, it doesn't feel like flattery. It feels like initiation. But the Sigma rarely plays into it. He sees through the disguise, the layered performances, the disguised admiration hiding behind humor. He knows most people aren't mocking him. They're masking their need for validation, and he won't reward that. His approval can't be bought with flattery or noise. It's earned through authenticity. That's what makes people both drawn to him and frustrated by him. They crave what he withholds, not gifts or compliments, but recognition that actually means something. And when they don't get it, they act like they never wanted it in the first place. But the truth lingers. Deep down, they know. His silence said more about their worth than 1,000 compliments ever could. Number 4, they feel both safe and exposed around him. They feel both safe and exposed around him, a contradiction that leaves people unsure whether to lean closer or retreat. The Sigma's presence doesn't demand anything, yet it seems to draw truth out of people effortlessly. He doesn't interrogate or pry, but something about his calm attention makes others drop their filters. He listens in a way that doesn't flatter, but sees. And when people realize he actually notices the things they hide, their micro-hesitations, their subtle insecurities, their silent longing to be understood, it's both comforting and terrifying. Most people are used to surface-level attention, smiles that mean nothing, conversations that skim the top. But the Sigma listens differently. He doesn't respond for the sake of replying. He reads energy, not words. And that kind of awareness makes people feel disarmed. They can't perform the usual version of themselves around him because his presence exposes when they're pretending. It's not that he's trying to reveal anyone. His stillness simply acts like a mirror that reflects truth back. This is why people feel grounded with him. His calm is contagious. It's like standing near a quiet fire, steady, warm, but alive with something dangerous if you get too close. They feel safe because he doesn't judge, yet exposed because his silence doesn't let them hide. It's intimacy without effort, and that level of raw honesty can make people feel naked without being touched. Some feel drawn to it, craving the authenticity he embodies. Others pull back, unsettled by how transparent they suddenly feel. Either way, no one leaves unchanged. The Sigma's energy creates a space where people's masks crack just enough to reveal who they really are. And once that happens, they can't unsee themselves. He's not trying to heal them or humble them. He's just being himself, a man whose inner stillness disturbs the performative rhythm of others. That's the paradox. His presence feels safe because it's real, but that very realness exposes how artificial most people have become. Number 5, their gossip about him sounds like confession. Their gossip about him sounds like confession, and half the time they don't even realize it. When people talk about a Sigma, it's rarely about who he actually is. It's about how he makes them feel. They'll analyze his every move, try to decode his silence, and dissect his decisions like amateur psychologists. But beneath all that chatter is something raw. Confusion mixed with admiration, envy blended with curiosity. They gossip not to harm his image, but to understand the kind of calm they can't manufacture. It's not malicious, it's human. The Sigma's stillness disrupts the noise people hide behind. He doesn't participate in social theatrics, doesn't need validation, doesn't flinch under judgment. That kind of composure unsettles people who've built their entire identity on being seen, approved, and accepted. So instead of admitting they're intimidated, they try to explain him away. The gossip becomes a therapy session, a place where they project their own doubts, weaknesses, and fascinations without realizing they're exposing themselves. You'll hear it in their tone. He's too quiet. He thinks he's better than everyone. He's strange. But each statement secretly translates to something else. I don't understand his confidence. I wish I could be that unaffected. He makes me question myself. Their words say one thing, their emotions confess another. The Sigma doesn't even need to defend himself. The rumors burn themselves out, because they're fueled by insecurity, not truth. What's ironic is that the more they talk, the more his legend grows. The mystery deepens. Every rumor adds another layer to his myth. The man who doesn't care but somehow commands attention, who says little but gets remembered most. And while others exhaust themselves trying to define him, he's somewhere quiet, unmoved, probably doing something simple, drinking coffee, reading, or disappearing for a while. In the end, the gossip tells you less about the Sigma and more about the world around him, a world that can't stand the existence of someone who doesn't need its approval. Their gossip isn't rebellion, it's confession, and every word they whisper about him is just another way of saying, I wish I understood myself the way he does. Number 6, they start copying his energy, not his actions. They start copying his energy, not his actions. And that's when you know the Sigma has quietly altered the atmosphere. It's never about imitation in the literal sense. They don't try to dress like him or repeat his words. They try to feel like him. There's something in the way he carries himself, a quiet rhythm that doesn't bend to approval or fear, and people can sense it like heat from a fire. They want that steadiness, that self-contained calm that makes the world seem small in comparison. So they start absorbing fragments of it. They lower their voices, they slow their movements, they adopt his stillness, thinking it's the source of his power. But what they don't understand is that his calm isn't a style, it's a result. It's born from the kind of inner work most people avoid. His silence isn't practiced. It's earned through years of detachment from noise, from ego, from needing to be noticed. Copying it without the depth behind it is like wearing armor with no training. It looks strong, but it cracks easily. And yet, the pull is irresistible. People sense something primal in his energy, something that doesn't come from trends or self-help books. It's ancient, the kind of energy you find in those who've faced themselves and survived. So when they stand near him, they subconsciously start syncing with his frequency. Their pace slows, their tone softens. They stop trying so hard. It's instinctive. They're trying to align with what feels like power that doesn't need permission. But after a while, they realize it's not the posture or the silence that makes him powerful. It's the rootedness, the unshakable core that can't be faked. His presence exposes how shallow imitation feels because what he radiates isn't performance, it's authenticity. That's the irony. The more they copy his energy, the more they highlight the gap between who they are and who they wish they were. They're not trying to be him. They're trying to remember the version of themselves that once felt that free. And that's the true effect of a Sigma's energy. It doesn't inspire imitation. It provokes awakening. Number 7. They test his morality to locate his weakness. They test his morality to locate his weakness, not because they want to destroy him, but because they're intrigued by how untouchable he seems. The Sigma's calm makes people suspicious. In a world addicted to reaction, someone who doesn't flinch feels unnatural. So they start probing, subtle provocations, passive-aggressive jokes, little moral traps disguised as debates. They want to see if he'll break character, if his peace is just a facade, or if it's something real enough to unsettle them. It's human curiosity mixed with insecurity. People are used to control being loud, authority backed by aggression or ego. But the Sigma's version of control is silent, grounded, almost unsettlingly consistent. He doesn't moralize or argue, he just is. And that makes people question their own stability. They test him hoping to expose a flaw that makes him human again, something that proves he's not really above the chaos, that he can still be pulled into it like everyone else. But the Sigma doesn't take the bait. He reads the intention behind every provocation like an open book. When someone tries to guilt-trip him, he smiles. When they throw a moral accusation, he lets silence answer. When they exaggerate a scenario to trap him into choosing sides, he simply refuses to play the game. His restraint isn't weakness. It's power in its purest form, the kind that terrifies people because it's not ruled by impulse. And when they realize they can't shake him, something shifts. The same people who tested him start respecting him, even if they won't admit it out loud. His self-control exposes the chaos they've normalized. They start to understand that morality, for the Sigma, isn't about appearances or approval. It's about alignment, doing what feels right to his core, not what looks right to the crowd. In the end, their tests become revelations. They discover not his weakness, but their own. because nothing humbles a person faster than realizing their manipulation, noise and moral games have no power over a man who has already made peace with himself. That's when they stop testing him and start questioning why they needed to. Number 8. They offer help he never asked for. They offer help he never asked for. And it's almost poetic how predictable it becomes. The Sigma doesn't ask for handouts, guidance, or approval. He moves through life with a quiet self-sufficiency that unsettles people who define their worth by how much they're needed. When someone doesn't need them, they feel invisible, and the Sigma, by simply existing in his independence, forces them to face that fear. So they rush to help. They offer unsolicited advice, unnecessary favors, or gifts wrapped in good intentions but rooted in insecurity. It's not generosity, it's ego. Deep down, they're trying to insert themselves into his story, because standing next to someone who doesn't rely on anyone makes them question their own purpose. Helping him gives them temporary relevance. It tricks them into believing they matter in his world. You'll see it play out subtly, someone insisting he should let them handle it, or pushing opinions he never requested. They frame it as care, but it's really about control. They can't relax around someone who doesn't need rescuing, because his independence highlights the quiet truth. Most people build their identity around being useful, not being whole. The Sigma, on the other hand, is already whole, and that terrifies them. The irony is that their attempts to assist him often backfire. The more they try to insert themselves, the more unnecessary they feel. His calm refusal to depend on anyone doesn't insult them, but it quietly dismantles their illusion of importance. They realize that their help doesn't complete him. It exposes their own dependency on being needed. The Sigma isn't rude or ungrateful. He simply doesn't play the validation game. He'll thank them, smile, and carry on exactly as before. And that's what drives them crazy. Because while they were trying to prove their usefulness, he proved something far deeper. That real strength is not about refusing help out of pride, but living in a way where help isn't required. In the end, their help isn't about him at all. It's about them, trying to soothe the discomfort of witnessing someone who doesn't need saving, fixing, or validation to feel complete. Number 9. They assume. He knows something they don't, and he usually does. They assume he knows something they don't, and that assumption isn't wrong. There's a depth in the Sigma's silence that unnerves people, a kind of quiet awareness that feels like he's already read the script while everyone else is still memorizing their lines. He doesn't rush to speak, doesn't overshare, and doesn't fill silence just to feel relevant. And that restraint makes people wonder, what does he know that we don't? It's not about intelligence in the traditional sense, it's perception. The Sigma sees patterns others ignore, the hidden motives behind smiles, the small cracks in people's stories, the truth that sits between words. He observes more than he reacts, and that observation gives him insight others mistake for intuition, or even mystery. It's not mystical, it's awareness, sharpened by solitude. While others are drowning in distraction, he's been listening to the world quietly, piecing together what everyone else overlooks. That's why people often look to him for unspoken answers. In conversations they'll pause, waiting for his take, like his silence contains a wisdom they can't articulate. And when he finally speaks, it's rarely long, but it cuts through the noise like truth, dressed in simplicity. It's unsettling how accurate he can be about things no one told him. That's the moment they realize he does know. Not everything, but enough to make them rethink what they thought they understood. The paradox is that the Sigma never flaunts what he knows. He doesn't need to. His awareness isn't performative, it's functional. He uses knowledge as a compass, not a crown, and that humility only deepens the aura, because people can sense he's not guessing, he's certain. So they start reading his reactions like sacred text, his pauses, his half-smiles, even his indifference. They project wisdom into his silence because, deep down, they feel something they can't explain. He's operating from a mental altitude they haven't reached yet. He doesn't just see the world, he sees through it. And that's why, even without speaking, he ends up teaching lessons most people never realize they've learned until long after he's gone. Number 10. They protect his image without knowing why. They protect his image without knowing why. And it's one of the strangest social reactions to a Sigma's presence. Even people who've barely spoken to him will step in when someone tries to speak against him. It's not loyalty in the usual sense, it's instinct. There's something about his energy that commands quiet respect. It's as if the unspoken agreement in every room is this: you don't talk recklessly about him. It's not that he's perfect or even universally liked. It's that people feel he carries something sacred, a kind of balance that shouldn't be tampered with. His name carries a stillness that doesn't belong in gossip. So when others try to drag him into trivial talk, something in people resists. They might not even understand why, but deep down they sense that disrespecting him feels wrong, like disturbing something ancient and powerful that should be left untouched. The Sigma doesn't defend himself, and that's part of what makes others do it for him. His silence in the face of judgment isn't passive, it's disarming. He doesn't argue, doesn't retaliate, doesn't play the social games of reputation management. And that calm neutrality exposes how desperate most people are to prove they're good. The Sigma doesn't need to prove it, he simply is. That difference makes people protective, almost reverent, without even realizing they're acting on it. It's also about energetic equilibrium. The Sigma brings a certain peace wherever he goes. Not peace as in comfort, but peace as in power under control. People subconsciously know that kind of stability is rare. So when someone tries to tarnish it with gossip or envy, the collective instinct kicks in. Don't ruin what steadies the room. Even his critics end up softening their tone when they speak about him. They'll criticize others easily, but talk about him with a strange caution, like they're aware he doesn't fit into their usual categories. His reputation defends itself through presence, not persuasion. That's the quiet power of a true Sigma. He doesn't build an army, yet people still guard his name. Not because they owe him anything, but because some part of them knows. You don't attack what you secretly wish you could understand. Number 11. They reveal secrets around him unintentionally. They reveal secrets around him unintentionally, and it's not because he pries, it's because his energy disarms people in ways words can't. There's something in the Sigma's stillness that makes deception feel like noise. His calm presence carries a kind of quiet truth that weighs on anyone trying to hide behind half-truths or rehearsed versions of themselves. Before they realize it, they're saying things they swore they'd never admit to anyone. Things that usually take months or years to surface. It's not magic or manipulation, it's energetic honesty. The Sigma doesn't project judgment or curiosity, which creates a rare psychological vacuum, a space where people finally stop performing. His silence acts like a mirror, and in that reflection, people see themselves without the usual filters. They don't feel interrogated, they feel understood. That sensation of being seen without effort or agenda triggers a deep need to unburden, and the longer they sit in that energy, the harder it becomes to carry lies. People often walk away from conversations with him slightly unsettled, realizing they've said too much. They'll laugh it off, call it weird, and try to rationalize why they felt safe enough to expose something so personal. But what they really felt was relief. The kind that comes from being around someone who doesn't weaponize vulnerability. The Sigma doesn't gossip, doesn't interrupt, and doesn't use confessions to feed his ego. He just listens, absorbs, and lets silence do what truth usually can't. Heal quietly. And that's what makes him both magnetic and dangerous. People crave his energy because it feels pure, but purity has consequences. It exposes the dirt people try to hide. His calm doesn't demand honesty, it summons it. Around him, lies don't just sound wrong, they feel wrong. So people confess not out of trust, but out of exhaustion. They can't maintain their armor in his presence, because he doesn't wear any himself. And once they've shared those secrets, they realize something profound. He didn't free them with advice or words. He freed them with silence. Number 12. They search for flaws just to feel human again. They search for flaws just to feel human again. Not because they hate him, but because his steadiness disturbs their balance. The Sigma's composure doesn't just impress people, it quietly exposes them. His calm makes their anxiety louder. His focus makes their distraction obvious. His detachment highlights how much they cling. So to soothe the ego, people start digging, not to destroy him, but to restore the illusion that everyone's equally flawed, equally lost, equally ordinary. They'll analyze him in small ways, almost obsessively. They look for inconsistencies in his behavior, contradictions in his words, signs of emotional weakness. Anything that proves he's normal. Because if he isn't, if he truly is, as centered as he seems, then what does that say about them? His balance becomes a mirror that reflects their chaos, and most people can't stand that reflection. So they try to find a crack in it, something to point at and say, "See, he's no different from us." But what they fail to realize is that the Sigma never claimed perfection. He just stopped pretending. He owns his shadows, his solitude, his scars, quietly and without apology. That's what unsettles people most. They confuse acceptance with flawlessness. They think peace means purity, when it actually means integration. The Sigma's composure isn't the absence of flaws, it's the mastery of them. And that's where their search collapses. The more they dig, the less they find. Not because he's flawless, but because he's transparent. His strength doesn't come from hiding the cracks, but from knowing every one of them intimately and refusing to be defined by them. That's what makes him untouchable. Still, they'll keep searching, replaying his words, misreading his silence, waiting for him to break the way they would. Because deep down, they need him to stumble. Not for revenge, but for relief. To feel human again. To believe that peace like his isn't real. That it's just an act. But when he doesn't fall apart, they're left facing the truth they've been avoiding. He's not perfect, just whole. And that's far rarer and far harder to accept. In the end, everything about the Sigma male defies explanation, not because he's trying to be mysterious, but because mystery is what happens when authenticity refuses to perform. His power isn't loud, it isn't rehearsed, and it isn't a mask worn to impress the world. It's the kind of power that exists in silence, raw, self-contained, and completely unbothered by validation. That's why people react to him in such paradoxical ways. Some admire him, some envy him, some try to understand him, while others try to decode or even discredit him. But all of them feel him, and that's what makes him unforgettable. He doesn't chase belonging, yet people gather around him. He doesn't seek approval, yet others secretly crave his acknowledgement. He doesn't raise his voice, yet his presence reshapes the tone of every room he enters. The Sigma isn't playing the social game. He is the silence that exposes how empty that game really is. That's why even after he leaves, his energy lingers. It reminds people of who they could be if they weren't so desperate to be seen. People may call him complicated, detached, or even cold. But the truth is simpler. He's just real. Real in a world addicted to performance. Free in a world built on fear. And that freedom is what unsettles, inspires, and awakens everyone who crosses his path. Because deep down, they sense what he already knows. When you no longer need the world's approval, the world quietly begins to follow your lead. So, if you've made it this far, don't just watch from the sidelines. Step into that same stillness. Own your depth. Guard your energy. And let the noise reveal itself for what it really is. Insecurity wearing confidence as costume. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more brutally honest insights like this. Like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because somewhere out there, another Sigma is waking up to who he really is. And when he does, the world will shift again.